Hello everyone, welcome to IS 300 and today's discussion of Chapter 7, Web Services, AJAX, and Mashups. Today we're going to talk about two very important web services that are very widely used, SOAP, which is the Simple Object Access Protocol, and REST, Representational State Transfer. We'll compare the two. We'll look at AJAX, which is for developing user interfaces using JavaScript. We'll also talk about mashups. Mashups are simply the ability to combine multiple applications into a single user interface. Multiple applications, single user interface. As we know, the internet is basically three important protocols. Hypertext Transfer Protocol, or HTTP, the Domain Name System, or DNS, and TCP/IP, Transmission Control Protocol and Internet Protocol. If you are watching this video right now, you are probably using TCP/IP. You have an IP address. You must have an IP address to use the internet. This IP address may not be visible to you, but is definitely required for gaining access to the internet. Other critical technologies, mostly for applications, are web services, which are used to get access to infrastructure services within the cloud. AJAX, which is asynchronous JavaScript and XML, allows users to build web-based applications using JavaScript. XML is the language of choice, the markup language of choice, if you will, for the development and transfer of information over the internet. Mashups, again, multiple applications, single user interface, allows users to compose multiple software as a service applications, single user interface, through a web page created by combining data or functionality from different sources and assembling various web-based components using the mashup. We will look at an example at the end of this discussion. The one technology that has been most influential in cloud computing functionality is virtualization. Virtual machines allow multiple platforms to coexist on a single computer without changing the underlying hardware. Many of you, if you're working at home, if you're teleworking, you may be using a virtual machine. I use a virtual machine on a regular basis, almost every day. Web services, a common platform that allows multiple applications using different languages to communicate with each other. You can think of web services as translators. Simple Object Access Protocol, SOAP, allows the exchange of information, decentralized, distributed, all of the things that we know cloud computing to be, and WSDL, which is an XML-based interface, a description language that describes the functionality offered by a web service in XML format. SOAP and WSDL web services are basically remote procedure calls. If there's any programmers out there, you know what a remote procedure call is. It's simply a go-to statement, the ability to call or invoke functionality when you need it. This gives you the ability to use remote procedure calls over HTTP. It includes support for objects. Remember, an object, a person, place, or thing that can be programmatically defined. A client application can invoke web services by sending a SOAP request in XML format. If you're using a SOAP and you're using XML, you have the ability to include an optional header. The header then gives you the functionality for security, quality of service, and other functions that might be required in a loaded distributed environment, and the header is an ingenious way to include additional functions such as user authentication inside the SOAP document. Then we talk about REST, representational state transfer. There are 4 functions. It's very simple. You can get, put or post, put, and delete. If you know SQL, you know that get is very similar to the select statement in SQL. Post, very similar to the insert statement in SQL. Put, very similar to the update statement in SQL. And delete is the same in both REST and SQL. Here are 2 examples. In the Yahoo REST search engine, there is XML. You can tell because it has an XML tag right there in the top of it that tells you this is an XML, what version you're using, and that kind of information is included in what we would consider the header. Then you bring in a schema which will allow for the formatting of the XML, and you have a title tag. In this case, we're going to getting cloud computing from Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia. That's the title tag. We include a summary in this XML, which is cloud computing services often provide commerce business applications online and so on. That's the summary. The URL is the web address that's being used, and the URL that's displayed, the date, other information, all of that embedded inside XML tags. This is very basic XML 101. Then on the other side, Google is using REST to search the same functionality, but in JavaScript. It's invoking the methods, the post, put, delete, and get inside of Java formatted programming language. It still gives you the title, which is similar to the other side. It gives you a URL, the definition, which is pulling from whatis.com, where we're starting, the pages that we're using, the results set, and things of that nature in Java format. And so these 2, one in XML, this is XML over here, this is Java over here, 2 different types of languages, the same functionality. If we compare SOAP and REST, SOAP only works in XML. All data is passed in XML format. REST gives you more flexibility. You can use XML, you can use HTML, you can use other different formats, plain text, all of that. The most preferred format is JavaScript Object Notation, JSON. Here are the comparisons of SOAP and REST. If you need more security, then you typically have to use SOAP. If you need more functionality, then you need REST. It's lighter, it's more efficient, it's easier, it's for pure internet communications. Can't mix other transports. You can mix other transports if you're using SOAP. REST is faster, cheaper, and more functional, I guess. And I believe that now, as we're migrating mostly to cloud environments, REST has been more widely used than SOAP. Here is an example of AJAX, or a diagram rather, that shows you a traditional plain old internet application on this side, and a rich internet application on the other side. The difference between these two environments is that in the case of the traditional application, using HTML over HTTP, plain old everyday web pages that are invoked by typing in a URL and going to a website. That's basic traditional internet applications. We use them all the time. If you want to add more functionality, though, in a rich internet user interface, you invoke some JavaScript and some HTML. Both of them will give you JavaScript and HTML functionality. The difference is that the JavaScript in the rich internet application will use an AJAX controller to manage request and response. And remember, we're talking about REST services, which are get, put, post, and delete. Get, put, post, and delete, which is pulling information primarily from a database. Both of them pull from a database. But the difference with the rich internet application is it's using Java script object notation. Mashups. One of the most popular tools for developing user interfaces that take functionality from multiple applications using a single user interface. Multiple applications, single user interface. It takes integration to another level by using the presentation layer, and we know that the browser, the client, is on the presentation layer, along with the service itself. It's a client-server architecture, but it allows you to format using the browser functionality. JavaScript library can also be invoked at runtime and executed on a client application, which means that these cannot be thin clients, but rather they have some of the processing and capability on the user machine or on the client. Google Maps is a good example of a mashup. I'll show you that in just a second. Here it is right here. So, again, we've got XML, and it specifies the World Wide Web Consortium. There's a header, the head tag, which again is where you can invoke and embed security, user authentication, and things like that. There's a script tag, which tells you here's the source of my script and the language that I'm using, a beginning tag and an ending tab. It gives you then the ability to do a search and load the results of that search in a user interface that looks just like this one. So this XML gives you this output. Mashups are very common. They are very efficient, and they're very user-friendly. So if you have multiple websites and you want to embed functionality into one single user interface, Mashups is a very common tool for doing so. In this week's reading material, I have included a Mashup tutorial. If you would like to take a look at the tutorial and get a feel for how to use it, it might be something that you will find very useful and informative. If you have any questions as you work through the tutorial, please feel free to let me know. And this is today's discussion of Chapter 7.